Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. I am Andy Saunders. I will be the moderator for this panel tonight, and we have a smaller panel, but still quite a star-studded one. And our two panelists at this point, both of whom were on last week's shows, we have Carrie Green, whose run came to an end on Thursday, and also Kaya Chua. Thank you both for Kaya was on Wednesday's episode. So I believe Wednesday, yes, it was. That's correct. That was the only Final Jeopardy I missed myself. So it was a tough one. So thank you both for being able to join us on this late Monday night. Normally I start us off with this week in Jeopardy history, Sandy Baker. Her run came to an end this week, I believe 1 year ago, and also she tweeted out today that her hometown put up a sign at the entrance, home of Jeopardy champion Sandy Baker. So congratulations to her on that accomplishment. I think there's an astronaut from her hometown as well, so that means she is the second most notable. I would put going into space still slightly ahead of winning on Jeopardy, even though I'm a big fan of the show. Once again, you can tweet us at hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. Also, if you have any guesses as to the significance of the hat I am wearing, I don't expect my panelists to know, but if anyone else does and wants to tweet in with your guesses as to what the significance of the hat I am wearing, please do so. And once again, I will give you a shout out if you have a question or a comment for the panel. So feel free to do that. Going back as well this week in Jeopardy history, 9 years ago, the return of Bob Mesco after a daily double mishap in his first set of games. He returned this week for his second set, thereby creating a memorable exchange between himself and eventual TOC alternate Bud Humphrey, when, of course, Bud saw Bob and thought, oh, well, I'm the alternate, expecting Bob to be like, I'm the alternate too, but Bob was like, oh, they have alternates in in the Tournament of Champions? So the Ultimate Tournament of Champions Round 2 began 10 years ago this week, and tomorrow is the 12th anniversary of Brian Weekle winning $52,000, which at the time was a one-day record. Clips from that show, I believe, were also shown in the Brangelina movie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Most of the other stuff I'd mentioned last week. Also a reminder, the online test, if you're looking to write, that is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And a special online test panel is Friday at 8 p.m. Oh, if you'll give me 2 seconds, we may actually get Stephen Mitzner in. He was on. He was on Sports Jeopardy, and he is scheduled to join us. But while we are waiting for him, let's just get straight into. Let's first, I guess, let's talk about the episode you guys were on. I would say that Kaya, you're. Is it Kaya or Kaya? I'm terrible with.
Kaya. Rhymes with Slaya.
My God, I'm so sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
So, your regression was planned for sure, I'm guessing, right?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Do you have any regrets about that?
Absolutely not. I mean, so after the episode ended and on the long drive home, the one thing I was concerned about was whether it was the actual proper wager, if I had actually wagered enough. And I was going through the possibilities like 12,201, 12,601, 13,001, and after a while I just decided, you know what, I don't care anymore.
That's fair. Carrie, how, I mean, obviously you had survived a couple of close scares before then, but seeing that the big score racked up that way, were you scared at all?
I, I tried to not pay a whole lot of attention to what was going on with other players and just play my game. I had to be aware of what people were doing and where they were, but I didn't want to be intimidated and feel like I wasn't, being true to myself, and that's what I did in every game. So, yeah, it was a little bit, but you just try to get above that. And you're right, I had survived some close calls, and so, in the back of my head was like, well, might happen again, and it might not. I mean, at that point too, I'd won a lot, so it was kind of like, if it ends now, I'm good. This has been great. It's been a wonderful run, and I was really happy. I probably wouldn't have felt that way after the first one or two games.
Okay, that's all. I think more contestants need to have that sort of attitude going in, and now. As you may have noticed along the bottom, Stephen Mitzner has joined us. He was on episode 28 of Sports Jeopardy. Thank you for being able to get on. I'm glad we got a hold of you. That was awesome. Thanks for tweeting at us. Was hoping Jeannie was going to get you the link, but that is cool. We managed to get you in. So both Stephen, you and Kea both had a Denver Nuggets clue, which was a bit of an irony in your respective games. One was slightly more significant than the other, but you also both wagered pretty big on some daily doubles. Do you want to talk about your daily double strategy while we're at it?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep,
Right.
just fine.
So basically, I knew going into Sports Jeopardy, my whole goal was to be in that top 3. So as soon as I saw I had 10,000 going into that second daily double, I'm like, the only chance I can then double up again and have a high enough score on that leaderboard is to take a huge bet. So rather than betting everything and making it a true daily double, I bet everything but $7, so I'd still remain up on that stage, because to not be on that stage for Final Jeopardy is a scary proposition if you miss it, and then you're down to 0. So luckily I got that right, and then so that was kind of my strategy. It's so much different than regular Jeopardy, where your goal is just to win in advance. Rather here, you had to put up as high a score as possible, because there was another, I think, 24 shows taped after me.
Now, let's see, what else? Any thoughts on, you missed a daily double early on in your game with the Buffalo Bills kicker. You said Bruce Smith instead of the defensive lineman, about not getting the hip quite into it, but
The kicker didn't even go through my mind. I was just thinking, what player hits the ball out? So I was thinking Bruce Smith could knock the ball out from the other guy. If I had thought, when you're up there, that amount of time you think you have is a lot less than it looks like when you're on television.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're watching on television. So just didn't get on to kicker. And when I thought that, I was like, okay, I doubt I'm going to make the leaderboard. But then luckily got some more categories and hit another daily double. Without hitting that second daily double in Double Jeopardy, it would have, again, changed how I played the game. So it's amazing how much finding a daily double changes your entire probability outcome of whether or not, especially in Sports Jeopardy, if you have any shot to come back on that leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm guessing being from Houston, a Stanley Cup question might be a little more difficult for you as opposed to somebody from the Northeast.
Yeah, well, when they said trophies, I knew I was kind of unsure. It wasn't my go-to category, but I'm like, I'm here once. The difference between first and Sports Jeopardy is $5,000. Third place is $1,000, so it's $4,000 on the line, which is definitely a significant amount of money, but nothing like the $50,000 if you come back. So I said, even though I'm not positive, I'm gonna wager it all. And then when I saw that category, the first thing in my mind was like, this is not a good sign. And the Ilitches, I had no idea he owned the Red Wings or the Tigers. So when I saw the daughter's names, Ilitch sounded maybe sisters tennis. So I guessed randomly tennis. And then I was shocked when the other two guys got it. Kudos to them, because I was completely lost. And I did for a second think there's a lot of names on the Stanley Cup, but I didn't know they put owners on there, let alone daughters of owners. So you bet big, and sometimes, as I told them, sometimes you bet big and you win, and sometimes you bet big and you come in third. So it was a great experience, though.
You are not the only person on this panel who can relate to that one tonight. But moving back to, actually, I'd like to ask a question of the entire panel at this point. I don't know if you guys saw tonight's show, but at the beginning of tonight's show, Alex Trebek made a comment about how the returning champ doesn't have an advantage at all because the categories are different. And I'd like to know what you guys think about this one. Do you guys think the returning champion has an advantage?
I definitely felt more comfortable as my games went on, so I would say that was somewhat of an advantage. I wasn't shaking anymore as I was in the first game. Had to prop myself against the podium. So, I do think that perhaps you get a little bit better on your timing. Although, I found that was still a challenge for me in my last games as much as it was in my first game. So, but I'd say yes, there is a slight advantage. When he said that tonight, I was just thinking, that's crazy. Of course, everybody's going to think that there's some advantage, and I'm just thinking it gives you an advantage. So, I a lot of times at the beginning of the show, he'll say something, and I'll think, now, where did that come from? And this was one of those nights.
I think he's just trying to... I think he realized how much Alex destroyed things on Friday and wanted to give the challenger some sort of false sense of or some sort of sense of hope. But I think we can talk about contestant Alex in a little bit. But so you were going to say something, Stephen?
Yeah, I was just going to say I definitely think there's an advantage because Jeopardy, as soon as you see those lights, you get trained your eyes get trained that's when you hit the buzzer as soon as that light flashes, at least for me. So I felt so much more confident as the game progressed. I could only imagine how much would be had I just played compared to somebody that hadn't. So that's a surprising comment that coming back does not give you an advantage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Kea, sorry. You got in on the buzzer 28 times. I just checked your archive for that. What would you say the secret was to buzzing in so quickly, especially against somebody like Carrie, who had won 5 games at that point?
So I guess, well, first of all, I played Quiz Bowl back in high school, so I've had a little bit of practice, so I'm kind of used to it. I also, pretty much right when I got the audition, I sort of got invited to the audition back in last April, I guess. I just picked up a pen and started to decide, like, you know what, I'm going to make sure I keep buzzing in and try to time it every single time I watch Jeopardy. I settled on a particular way to hold the buzzer that was comfortable for me, and that's pretty much what's my plan.
Okay.
Yeah, this was one of my most frustrating games as far as buzzing in. And, whatever she was doing, it worked for Kea because, it was a challenge, but this game in particular, there were so many times it was like, oh, again, because I knew a lot of those and I wasn't getting in on them. We've actually talked online about a couple of those specifically. So.
Yeah.
It's interesting to how there's sometimes a big difference between perception and how things actually played out. That Wednesday game for you, Carrie, I just checked out the archive just to see. I mean, you seemed to get the same number of correct responses in that game as you did in a lot of your others. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have thought that, just, as my recollection. I haven't looked at them and compared. I know my mom has been on and she knows it in, all sorts of detail. But yeah, it really felt like a game in which I just wasn't getting in there. So.
Though I can only imagine how Travis felt.
Yeah, I do feel bad for him because, boy, he had some trouble getting in there. And, when he did ring in, he seemed to know the answers, and it must have been very frustrating.
Yeah. We actually were in the elevator in the parking garage on the way out of the studio, and he said, yeah, Kea, you're pretty fast on the buzzer. Couldn't get in.
Now, going back to the start of your run, Carrie, what was it like being called to play against Michael right after he won all that money?
Well, I watched the first 2 games of that taping day, so his Monday and Tuesday games from the audience, and the whole time my mother and I were thinking exactly the same thoughts, although we couldn't compare those until later, and it was just, oh, please don't let it be him. He's young, he's fast, he seems to know everything. But what started, it was just, and I'm gonna do what I care to do, and if it works out, great. I honestly, to this day, I don't really feel like I beat him, more that he beat himself, and I just kind of was lucky enough to be there to clean up the aftermath.
Okay. We actually have a tweet in from @Rafferby, Megan Barnes. Carrie, can you break one of the 3 laws of robotics live on camera? Just checking.
Well, I don't know if there's anybody close enough. Yeah, I definitely thought that comment was one of my favorites, actually. So I saw that. I've got that now as my username on the board because I like that so much. I'm not an Android, but I play one on TV.
Speaking of the boards in JBoard, I know that UK were on there quite a while before you got the call. How much do you think being on JBoard helped?
So actually, I have been sort of lurking. Even before JBoard existed, I was sort of lurking on the Sony boards. And so, I don't know how much it helped, but once in a while, like when there was a waking thread that came up, it would sort of rile my passion a little bit.
But did it make you feel more comfortable about, these are just normal people and I can hold my own against them? Because, I don't know, for me it was like, oh, I'm going to be on the set and there's all these amazing people that I'm going to be competing against. And, I mean, even in my audition, I felt like it was just this incredible stratosphere of people.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I sort of went into the taping thinking to myself, you know what? Jeopardy's hard, and there's a lot of random stuff that can go on, so I just sort of radically accept whatever happens. I just do the best I can, and that's okay.
Now, one other thing from JBoard, no, I just think you're, as a Scrabble player, as a competitive Scrabble player and director myself, I found your username actually quite ironic, being that you don't play Scrabble, at least competitively, because the name of the major word judge / study program in competitive Scrabble is also called Zizova. So I thought that was quite interesting.
No, I actually downloaded the Zizova program a long time ago, and I just like the word. Yeah, but most of my attention turned to other things.
So yes, and I also should point out it is National Scrabble Day, as the inventor of Scrabble, Alfred Butts, was born on April 13th. So another.
Well, it's my brother's birthday, so he'll be very happy to hear that. Happy birthday to Jeffrey.
Another comment from David Kendall. Perhaps Carrie needs a Turing test.
Boy, I'm just getting it tonight. Oh man. That's okay, you know. I've never been an over expressive kind of person, and I liked one of the comments on something I read online. Couldn't tell you what it was, but you know, it's like we live in New England, and some of us are stoic, and I liked that one quite a bit. So I inherited this. Boy, you should have met my grandmother. That woman had true ice in her veins. So I'm quite expressive compared to her.
Now, speaking of the internet, the internet seems to be very polarized towards how Alex has played the game so far. Did either of you guys stay and watch Friday's game? Or
I
Friday?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched. And Kay, you could have, right? Because it was lunch that you played, so.
I could have, and I chose not to because it was a rough, a, a raw loss. So yeah, I
Oh,
decided
yeah,
just to head
yeah.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my mother was watching you from the audience. I mean, of course, you know, I'm running around and everything, but she said, you know, you just and all of that, you know, bravado went away, and you were just crying on Maggie's shoulder, and yeah, I mean, it took a lot. It took a lot out of everybody playing those games, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So after our show taped, as I was on my way out of the studio and walking back, there was actually a middle school group that was in the audience that day, and they were getting ready to leave, and they were cheering and like chanting my name as I was walking by, and so that really took the sting out of the out of losing.
Oh,
It
that's
really felt, yeah, made me feel like a rock
that's
star.
great.
Yeah, felt pretty good.
Yeah, so I not only did I stay and watch Alex's game, but I sat right behind his family and you know, was able to see their excitement watching him play. And I noticed the contrast between, you know, his very quiet, steady demeanor and how excited they were. It was very interesting.
Carrie, you referred to Maggie. She was literally, right after I lost, gave me a huge hug and was like, I love how you played the game. All I could think to myself was, I do appreciate that, but I wish we would be having a celebratory hug right now rather than you missed. But it was that whole staff really is some of the best people I've ever been around. I mean, they're more than professional. They see hundreds upon thousands of people, I'm sure, over the years, but they make each person feel special and have a great experience on Jeopardy. So for me, on Sports Jeopardy, I almost wanted to win my game just to come back on the show, forget about winning. So that was it was a lot of fun, and had a great time.
Yeah, they were terrific. I thought very highly of all of the staff. They were great.
Now, do you guys have the online test is coming up this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Do you guys have any? Well, first of all, Stephen, are you planning on trying out for the main show now that you've been on Sports Jeopardy?
Definitely. I had taken the online tests once or twice before, but definitely. While sports is definitely my go-to category, I am hopefully a little all-around kind of a player, but I hope to see a lot of sports questions on the online test. So, but it's fascinating, that test, when you think about how many people around the country are trying out. Sports Jeopardy, you're all in a room. It's a little less intimidating. I went to Dallas for my audition, so you're there with about 200 other people. So you're like, I only have to be in the top 10 or 15, whatever. When you're playing against the national audience, I don't even know the type of score you have to put up in order to get on the show. So at least in that aspect of it, I found Sports Jeopardy probably was a little bit easier to get on, or at least know your competition. But still a lot of smart people out there that all want to be on Jeopardy. So.
Now, what do you have? Carrie or Kea, do you have any tips for anyone auditioning?
I guess I have two. Well, one main one. Study current events. Like the recent bestsellers and just news that's happened in the last several months, because they always ask a couple questions.
Carrie?
I would agree, and I mean, I have the
think Carrie's
I
having
think the
some.
globe is, enough, definitely.
Can you, sorry, just repeat what you said? I think you were having some technical difficulties there.
Yeah, I
Blame the
think my
cat
cat
behind
jumped on
you.
my chair, so.
Yeah, blame the cat.
Yes, this is my cat, not a hat. So, no, I read the paper every day, and I think that's enough if you just do it consistently, because it's the bestsellers. You get a little bit of national, you get a little bit of international, and I don't write that down or try to study it, but I think that big stories you see day after day, and so it makes an impression. And that was enough for me on current events. I mean, modern music in particular. By modern, I mean anything after 1989. So, that's where I pick up a lot of that stuff too, because I haven't listened to regular rate in quite a long time, and then I could go back and study things that wouldn't be in the paper, like American presidents of the 1800s, which was a weak point for me, and so that's how I prepared, not for the online test, but for the show. For the online test, I said, I'm going to sit down and take it and see what happens, because if I didn't know enough at that point to just whip it out, then I didn't feel like I should, pursue it further, basically.
Now, David Kendall just sent us another tweet. He just wants to know, how did the panel do on? Do you know how well you did on the online test? Did you look at the questions afterwards and come up with a score?
I remember it was around 42 or 43, somewhere around there. It's been so long that that area.
Okay.
That's quite a score. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I have no idea. I did not look at them afterwards. I had taken the online test twice, and the first time I was very emotionally invested, and so the second time I was just like, if they get in touch with me, great. If they don't, no big deal. And then I remember at the audition they give you another written test, and again 50 questions, and I thought that was so easy compared to the online test. I thought the online one was much harder.
I actually recall that from my audition as well, and still nobody has tweeted in expressing any guess as to what the significance of my hat is, but still. Oh well, I'm sure somebody will. I'm sure there's a Canadian out there watching who has an idea, but we'll see what happens. Moving on, I did have an.
I'm going to be on the CBC radio for PEI tomorrow, in case there's any maritime listeners that you have. So I thought I'd pass that on.
Oh, sorry. What are you going to be on? Sorry.
I'm going to be on CBC radio in PEI tomorrow. They did an interview with me, taped it this morning to broadcast tomorrow morning. So, and shout out to my PEI family, who are not, really family, but adopted and feel that way. They're great people.
Now, one thing I actually always like to ask, when you guys are in rehearsal, they do a lot of buzzer tests, buzzer practice. Was there anyone who stuck out for each of you as being, oh, I really don't want to play this person, based off how quick they were in rehearsal?
For me, definitely. There was one guy, I don't remember his name, but I was like, wow, I really hope I don't get selected for his episode. And then surprisingly, he didn't do that well on the Sports Jeopardy. So it sometimes perception, reality, and also just whether or not somebody knows the categories. Because during auditions, they're trying out the buzzers, but you still are buzzing in when you think you know the correct answer up on the board. So you could have great practice clues that you know everything and you look like a whiz on the buzzer, then not know some categories when you're up there. So there were people, though, I was nervous about playing. So.
Kaya?
For me, I was the alternate for the taping that was 2 weeks ago, and so I think the only person that I wasn't scared of, because he was my alternate was Michael, and at the actual taping, Alex. Alex was lightning fast on the buzzer during rehearsal.
Yeah, and he also was.
Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead. He wasn't just fast, but he didn't have a tell, basically. I mean, he was just so even the whole time that you just didn't know when he was going to. I mean, he didn't move at all. It was very impressive.
Well, I mean, he was a professional poker player. If he has a tell, he's not going to be a very good professional poker player. So.
It was interesting. Dan kind of gave away a little of my strategy. We were talking offline on the show when I bet my wager in the first daily double of $3. I was just telling him afterwards, I saw the leaderboard, that's why I bet it. I didn't think he'd then use that on camera. So the two guys next to me knew I was going for the leaderboard. So that kind of like blew away my entire strategy. But I did go in there thinking I'm not really competing against these two guys. I'm competing against the top 3 on the leaderboard. So while it made a difference probably for my episode, for my actual show, them knowing my strategy didn't matter in the grand scheme of what I was trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that also Alex I would say Alex has probably done, in terms of preparation, Alex has probably done a little bit more than most players, most people before going on to the show. But that's just my own thoughts on that situation. And I think we're going to be getting Alex on the panel at some point, and I'm sure we'll go into more detail once he joins our panel regarding his preparation and just how I mean, I haven't seen many performances like his in recent memory. So, do you guys want to talk about Wednesday's Final Jeopardy at all? The Shakespearean characters one?
Sure.
Okay.
So
well, I
yeah.
mean, yeah. Did Richard III cross your mind at all?
No. The first thing that really popped into mind. So there's this infographic on the internet where it's a poster full of stick figures where it shows all the Shakespearean tragedy deaths. And since Richard III didn't come to mind, immediately I sort of visualized that, and Macbeth immediately came to mind. And I sort of ran through that, and unfortunately Richard III just didn't cross. It's also not on that poster. So, and then when they revealed Carrie's response, I was like, oh, that's it. That has to be right.
For some reason, Richard III seems to be a favorite play of the Jeopardy writers, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was an English minor in college. I took 3 Shakespeare classes, and it was one of my best professors, so I remember my Shakespeare fairly well. But I have to chalk this one up to Jasper Fforde because he treats Richard III like Rocky Horror is treated in his books, The Air Affair and the other books that came after in that series. And so it's been, I've read those in the last 10 years, and so it's been, kind of that was the first thing I thought of, and once I thought of it, I didn't even need to go anywhere else. That was it.
Yeah, I got stuck. I definitely got stuck on Hamlet and the ages of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and yeah, knew it was wrong, but couldn't find anything better, and so. But yeah, coming up. I just realized I haven't mentioned my craft beer choice for this panel. It's the Side Launch Wheat. I can't remember if I've had this during a panel before, but Side Launch is a craft brewer from Collingwood, Ontario. That's about an hour and a half north of where I am in Guelph. But this is the one I'm drinking tonight is their standard wheat beer, and it does wheat beer very well. And so and as I always like to say, if anyone is interested in having me drink something, please send a suggestion along. I'd be happy to give it a shot. Even the big 10%ers from some of the brewers are. I am not afraid to try those ones as well. So please send along any beer suggestions you might have. And I know some of our panelists are beer fans, or some of our other panelists, or some of our other regular panelists, I should say, are beer fans, but I'm not sure about you guys. Do you have any alcohol tendencies, guys?
I like Scotch.
I like a lot of alcohol, as was evidenced by my Thursday game. But these days I'm drinking a lot of gin.
I actually don't drink.
So we have a
So,
teetotaler,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm the designated driver, but I'll ask my friends. They're beer snobs, so
Okay.
ask for suggestions.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. One of my friends is a Scotch drinker as well, and they were complaining to me recently that apparently they're the only person in their entire town who drinks Scotch. So no bar in the
They need to
town
move to a
actually.
new town.
I will let them know that. But yes, they're the only person in town who drinks Scotch, and none of the bars in town carry Scotch because
Wow.
why would you carry Scotch when one part-time customer actually drinks it? So.
When I was studying before the taping, alcohol was one of my just like death categories, and so I actually spent quite a bit of effort trying to remember the basics, and by now it's all flushed from my memory, but
Which is funny, since you don't drink, you'd think you'd still have it.
yeah.
So I'm at the point of the panel where I ask if any panelist has any questions for any other panelists.
So, Kea, I just want to ask you if your mother has forgiven you.
Has
Because,
my mother forgiven me?
yeah, because she was sitting in the audience when you made that bet, and she said, "Oh, I told her not to bet like that."
Oh no, she knew I
I'm
was going to.
wondering if
They're perfect.
she
I've been sort of boring my family with like, oh, you should be more aggressive on daily doubles. You should do the forest bounce. I've been boring them for like years and years about this, so she knew I was going to.
So I didn't realize you didn't say that your mother was against this strategy.
I don't know if against is the right word. She's come to a place of acceptance, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sure she's not unique in being against the strategy from what I saw on the internet, on the hordes of anonymous masses, but that's okay.
I actually thought the hordes of anonymous masses would come out a little more against Alex's performance. But it seems like he's earned himself a number of fans with what he's done.
Everyone loves a winner.
Well, I mean, the amount of flack Arthur Chu got from people, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
Arthur Chu got a lot of hate, and so I don't know. It's kind of weird. But
I think Alex, he's got, a dichotomy of fans and haters. I think the fans are really, really, they like him a lot, and the haters, I didn't hear as much tonight as I did on Friday, but I just thought the comments Friday night were great. Tweeting every gets, so everybody reads it all, and it's very funny. It made me feel a little bit better about the whole robot issue. So.
Yeah. So it's funny, actually. So I think one of the complaints was that Alex was stalling when he was trying to come up with a wager for the Daily Double, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is, during our show, I took, I don't know, not a really long time, but I took an extended period of time to come up with my wager, and they must have, I think they cut it out for them because I was quiet the entire time.
That might actually have had something to do with it, and maybe that's something to consider if you're going to go on the show. If you're going to stall to take a long time to wager, just stay silent so they can cut it. They can cut it out.
Yeah.
Or if you're looking to stall, say things. But,
yeah.
So they have to leave it in.
Okay, so just a reminder to those tuning in, we've got our next two panels are already scheduled. We've got the online test special coming up on Friday, April 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is 5 p.m. Pacific if you're writing the online test and are interested in talking about your experience writing the online test, please let us know, and we'd certainly consider having you on to talk about that. We've got a couple panelists lined up already, but I'm sure Jeannie would like to see a couple more people out. And also discussing next week's games, we have April the 18th. That is a Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. So just so keep that in your calendars. We're back-to-back nights at the end of the week, Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So once again, I would like to thank our panelists. I'm glad you were able to join us, Stephen. I'm really, once again, thank you very much for tweeting us saying you were having trouble. I was able to get you in and talk, which I'm really happy about. Oh yeah, one other thing to you. That Clark clue in Double Jeopardy you had to deal with. That was unusual. What happened? What was going through your head on that? Sorry, before we go.
And I appreciate you watching the episode. So what happened was after he said Clark and they wanted more info, I thought he misphrased it and then didn't get out in time both names. So somewhere in my head, even though phrasing doesn't matter, you can say what is, who is, as long as it's in the form of a question. Somewhere in the back of my mind's like, he didn't phrase it right, that's why he missed it. So that just told me all I have to do is phrase it differently. I didn't realize that I needed the first names. So I assumed Clark was just enough, and yeah, that was just one of those like in the moment things that you're just, I guess, not paying attention or thinking like, here's an easy get, here's some easy money that's just found waiting there, and I'm just glad it wasn't like a 2,000. It wasn't that high of a number. Otherwise, it would have been a big hit. So, yeah, it was. When I watched the episode, it's amazing how much more you remember than when you're actually doing it. I had to really rewatch it. I didn't remember like half the categories. When you're going through it, it's just a totally different experience than when you rewatch yourself.
And I can attest to that on some of the televised high school quiz bowl I was on, that I couldn't remember half the stuff either. But okay, so yes, now that I've asked that final question of Stephen, we can end the broadcast for tonight. Once again, thank you, Stephen, for being able to join us. Also, thank you to Carrie, and congratulations. And as was mentioned, you actually got a "We'll see you in the Tournament of Champions," which hasn't happened in a while. So
congratulations.
I figure that's a contract, right?
Well, I'm sure winning 6 was the might have been it, but I mean, we all speculated that they just stopped saying it because there was no, like, after what had happened to one of the contestants last time, that they didn't want to make anyone think a Tournament of Champions spot was guaranteed. So
yeah, I was surprised to hear it then, and we'll see what happens, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and also thank you once again to Kea for joining us. And also, I have to say, you know, the $12,000 on the Daily Double, I would want to play the game that way too. So big props to that bet. And it might not have worked out, but I hope that we get a lot of more people being more aggressive on the Daily Doubles in the future. So I hope you inspired.
I really appreciate it.
I hope you inspired some people to give it a go when they get on Jeopardy. So once again, for everyone here at thejeopardyfan.com, thank you very much for tuning in and participating in tonight's panel. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great night.